Welcome to Studio Bell, home of the National Music Center. Before we get started, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territory of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. So, NMC's artist development programs like Artists in Residence create opportunities for artists to grow artistically and commercially and work with our one-of-a-kind technology and instrument collection. This residency is really special. With the recommissioning of Tonto, we wanted to bring in an artist that was going to do something innovative and utilize the unique possibilities of the instrument. And we couldn't be happier that Tribe was available and interested in using Tonto. They get the unique privilege of being the first artists to make music on the newly restored instrument. And you can go up to the 5th floor and see Tonto. It just moved out of Live Room C. You can see it in all its glory. And it will be on display tomorrow night at our After Hours program as well. And not only do you get to work with Tonto, you got to work with the co-creator of Tonto and the musical legend, Malcolm Cecil. And I hope that Malcolm will be joining us here in a couple of minutes. I want to acknowledge that this residency was made possible by our Artist in Residence supporters, Bell Media, and also through generous support of TD. Thank you so much. So I have Bear and Tim with me. This is a tribe called Red. They're going to share with us some insight into their artistic process. We're going to talk about what they've been up to in the studio, and we might get to hear a little sample of what they've been working on. So well, first of all, please give them a warm Studio Bell welcome. So, Tim, I saw a video where you talked about Tonto when you said that you had some unfinished business with Tonto. This is when you visited last year. So I'm wondering, what was your artistic vision before you came in to do this residency?
It was really unknown, actually. Like, I had no idea, or like, I tried to get ready for it, but I actually ended up throwing all of the stuff that I did to get ready for it when I come down to working with it. But I just knew that it was, it's a legendary synthesizer, and from the moment we met Tonto 4.5 years ago, it was, you could tell that it was a force, and it wasn't in working condition at the moment. And actually, when we did that interview a year ago or so, it was the first time that I heard Tonto talk. JL booted it up. I asked him over the couple days, to like, hey, can we turn it on? Like, you know, he kept saying it was like, you know, oh, it's like, you know, when I first came here, he said it was about 30%. Then I kept getting updates as the years went on, so like, you know, 50, 60. So when I was there, he's like, oh, it's about, you know, 80%. But let's see if we can talk to Tonto. So we booted it up, and we had an ARP set up with an arpeggiator, and we just kind of like just listened to it for like 5-10 minutes, and it was awesome. And then we did the interview. Then I was like, all right, we need to come back. And you know, I like Jay. It was always that thing where he's like, Jay, I was like, you know, like, I can't wait to get you in here to use it, kind of thing. So really happy that, you know, we were able to do that. It's and to have Malcolm here to kind of guide us, because, you know, JL is not with us anymore. So it was a little bit of bittersweet, but there's a lot of emotions coming into this. It was a lot of feelings and a lot of like spirituality kind of thing going on. It was one of those. It's been quite the experience.
So we're referencing JL or John, and John was our beloved electronic instrument technician, and he worked to restore Tonto. It was his last major restoration project, and he passed away in September. So I would like to dedicate this whole week of Tonto programming to the memory of John Limesider. And welcome to the stage, Malcolm Cecil. Hello. Please come have a seat. Squeeze in there. Here's your microphone on. Let's see. Great. So tell me a little bit about how your artistic vision has changed just in the last week of working with the collection here. What has blown your mind? What are you thinking about differently?
I guess in the whole project in a lot of ways. Like Tim was saying, we didn't really have any expectations coming in here other than, we knew we had gotten our new album to a certain point in production where we had a lot of ideas that are fairly fleshed out and together. And that we were going to take this opportunity. We were mostly thinking about melody stuff, just in general. But as soon as we got our first day in with Tonto and heard what we could do, it instantly became how can we use Tonto on the album somewhere to being, okay, Tonto's going to be on the album.
So tell me a little bit about this album that you're working on. Do you have any release dates, any plans for this album?
Not as of yet. I mean, we have lots of plans. Release dates, no, we're not at that point. But we've been pushing ourselves over the past year, not only to play twice as many gigs than we have in the past 2 years, but also to make a new album. So Tim and I have just been, head down in the mix for this whole year. Whenever we get off the road, So far, this album's been worked on in how many countries?
Oh man,
At least 4 or 5.
4 or 5 yeah.
and we've kind of gotten to what we thought we got to most of the way through kind of our collection process until we got here and started collecting a whole new level of sound.
So we leveled up on this next record. We really pushed ourselves and tried new sampling techniques. Messed with a lot of gear. We even went as far as going on remote locations to record people. We went all out for this record. And so even the sound designing, we really went out to be all right, we need to get some awesome bass tones. So we went out and found some, got some and everything. And then we came here. And then we ran the bass tones through Tonto or not the bass tones, the notes through Tonto, and it was wow. We did that the one track, and then we were just all right, let's keep running them right through it. So, and it changed the feeling and how the album sounds dramatically, and even though it's in a subtle way, it taught us a lot. We've learned a lot from Malcolm. We've learned a lot from Jason. We've learned a lot from this place. So it really did have a crazy effect on the way that this whole project sounds. And I guess if we're talking what we're really about is just releasing the best possible music from us in the future. That's all we really want. We want to, and that's kind of what's happening right now. So I don't know when we're going to release stuff, but hopefully it's soon. We want to release things, but we're in the process of it now.
So we showed up here with maybe somewhere in the area of 10, 12 fairly worked out ideas, and before we got in the room with Tonto, one of the first things we did was sit down with Malcolm and play him what we had ready for the album. And that was probably one of the big turning points in figuring out what we were going to do here. Because Malcolm was able to listen to what we had and said, okay, I see where you guys are going, I see what you need and what you guys are talking about wanting to add. So when we got into the room with Tonto, he had already set up a bass patch for us. And that's the thing that we keep talking about that changed the sound of this record, is that, you know, we're working with you know, all digital sounds. So once you send, you know, the stuff that Tim's already written through into Tonto, we got, you know, it's not just like choosing another sound like inside software. It's like, Tim put it best actually, that it was like asking, you know, a session bass player to come in and play, because you don't know what you're gonna get out of Tonto. You can't fully control what you're gonna get out. You know, even having Malcolm there setting up this amazing patch, every time we put something into it, it would be a question: is this going to work? What do we have to do? There was a lot of times where we had to change the bass line, take away stuff that was needed to make a full bass line the way we usually write. But Tonto is so huge that we would need less. You know, that's what one of the first things you told us was a little Tonto goes a long way.
So,
That couldn't be more true.
That's actually been the mantra of the entire session.
Malcolm, let's bring you into the conversation. You were separated from Tonto for a few years. What's it like seeing artists interacting with your beloved instrument?
Well, I must say it was very, very heartening and very gratifying, because Tim and Bear here were really into Tonto. I wish I could show you some of the videos I shot of them. Perhaps I should, you don't have a screen here anyway. But I mean, the two of them were playing the knobs. Tonto is played not just with the notes, but you change the sound dynamically as things are going through, and they know their music so well, obviously. They were able to do things with the knobs in time with the music, and they made some very interesting changes. The basic patch that I put down is, it's fairly standard for me, but it had variations. They were making variations to things like the filter, and also to the envelopes. In some cases, the line needed to cut off, so we would shorten the release time on the envelope and so on and so forth. But Tim and Bear just took to Tonto like ducks to water. It was amazing. And it was very gratifying to see them working it, because my whole purpose in giving Tonto to the National Music Center here was so that artists could. I had 5 conditions. The first one was that it would be a working exhibit. It wouldn't be just stuffed in the basement. That's what the Smithsonian wanted to do, so no. Then there was the second condition, which was that there had to be a maintenance person or team that could keep Tonto running, because Tonto needs attention. It's a whole lot of individual modules, and I don't think there's ever been a time in history when 100% of it has been working at any given time. So we're always repairing it, always working on it, and also I wanted people who saw my vision and could complete some of the projects that I didn't have either the time or, frankly, the money to be able to complete. I had started a number of projects. One of them is voltage-controlled envelope generators, and I built 10 of them, but I've never integrated them into the instrument, not for a number of reasons. But that's just one project. There are a number of other projects that I wanted to complete with Tonto, because Tonto is an expandable engineering system. But it's very gratifying to see it in the condition that I saw it when I came here, because John Limesider, God rest his soul, he basically did a tremendous job in replacing all the jacks and a lot of the components in there that were obviously in need of repair. But he did an incredible job. When I came in and looked at Tonto, I mean, it looked like it was just like it was when it was brand new. So I'm very happy about that, and made my heart glad to see that happening, because the whole purpose was to create an instrument that could be used by musicians and artists that wanted to expand just the realm of music, because Tonto doesn't just make new sounds, it makes new music. You can tune it to be, you can have 27 notes in the scale, 17, 19, as many notes in the scale as you want, microtonal things. And for many years I wanted to know how those scales sounded, but there weren't any instruments to play them on. So that's just one area. It's also capable of creating rhythms that you've never heard before. 21/8, for example. Sounds complicated, but it's actually quite a nice rhythm. But you have to get used to it.
If you're interested in seeing Tonto demonstrated, that will happen on Saturday, and there'll be an in-depth conversation with Malcolm followed by a demonstration. So I encourage you to come and check that out. If you're here for Alberta Electronic Music Conference, come check it out, and also access to that is included with admission to Studio Bell or with your membership. So come and get in-depth with Malcolm on Saturday. I'm wondering, how has working with Tonto changed your workflow as a duo?
That's one of the things I was gonna talk to you about when Cecil or Malcolm was talking about it. Me and Bear spend a lot of time together. I see him more than anybody else on the planet. We have a specific way of how we make music, and that all changed when we came here. Being able to feed the notes that we have written over the past year using an awesome thing that Jason set up, which basically converts the notes that we write into here to be replayed through Tonto on with zero latency. That freed up my hands. So we were able to go to use Tonto and turn knobs and do actual automation live. So, you know, when Malcolm would have this bass patch up and it sounded amazing and full, but when we mess with the filters, we can literally shape the sound that we wanted out of it. So we had this nice full tone, but if we wanted to make the dirtiest 808 that you've ever heard, we could definitely do that. And there was moments where I only had two hands and I didn't have enough hands to work with it. And Bear came in, and then it was this moment where it was Tonto, me, and Bear all working together to get this single pass through of the sound. And what's so crazy and gratifying about it, and what I'm so excited for you guys to hear, is that Tonto doesn't sound the same from the moment you hit play until 3 minutes into it. If you wanted to stop and hit record again and you played another track, it would sound completely different. So as far as like workflow goes, I think that it changed us. And it gave me a better understanding of how Bear's creativity is. And it brought us closer. And like if that was even possible, you know what I mean? Like it's like, so I learned a lot about Bear. I learned a lot about Tonto. I learned a lot about collaborating even closer, like and like getting that. And that would have never have happened unless we would have worked with Tonto, because we understand, or it's like an understanding now that this is how, I think this is how things got to be from here on out. I think that, you know, if we have an opportunity to make music like that again, because it's, you know, we're on the road and we just work in the box most times, so that's not possible. But if we can get out of our, you know, make time and hit a studio that has, you know, Tonto in it, if we come back here and work again, like, you know, this is gonna be special. It's special. So the whole, all the bass patches that we ran through, all the sounds and stuff, it's a combination of just this formula that I never ever thought was possible. So the sound sounds completely different than anything that we could have dreamt up.
It's also like shows you how ahead of its time Tonto is. Because when Malcolm would show us something, like to me, as a DJ, you show me that this is where the envelope filter is. Well, that's something I play with on a DJ mixer all the time. That's my language, And so the reason I was able to participate more hands-on in the production of the music on this in this residency is because we were working in a language that I understand, that I'm used to controlling. I can't play a keyboard or write a drum pattern the way that Tim does. For me, it's more I can tell him what feels good and what sounds good when he's working on it. But to actually be able to express myself, as part of the process was totally new for me. One of the most exciting things happened when we brought in a tape echo and ran that through, or ran Tonto through the space echo. And so Tim and I were working at that, at certain points we were working at different parts of Tonto, and we kind of had our backs to each other, and it was kind of like a control room on a spaceship or something. But when we brought in the space echo, we were shoulder to shoulder with each other.
Like we usually are on stage.
And I'm a huge dub fan, dub reggae. That's where I started with music. And when we started messing with that space echo, I had this huge moment of, whoa, that's how they did it. To actually be hands-on with this machine and be like, oh, I've been listening to these sounds for more than half my life, but now I actually got to feel how they're created.
Malcolm, you've been in the music game for decades, and so you've seen the evolution of music going, very digital. And it sounds like artists being able to interact with these modular synths is really inspiring and kind of a groundbreaking application. I'm just wondering if you can kind of speak to what you've observed, not only in this residency, but also in your career, of the evolution of music and how it's hopefully coming back to this more practical application.
Sure, yes. What's happened, when I first started, synthesizers had just come out. It was in the late 60s, and the first part of Tonto was a Moog 3C with a couple of extra keyboards and a couple of extra sequencers, which we called an expanded Moog 3. And that was only capable of making monophonic sounds, a single note at a time. So Tonto really became expanded to incorporate, at least in the beginning, it was just the multi-track tape machine, but then it extended to be the entire control room, because anything you process through it can be put back into the instrument again, and it's almost like a feedback loop. We can do things like that, but it was limited to just a single note. There was no polyphony. So one of the things that used to happen was artists would come in and say, oh, there's a keyboard here, and they'd immediately go and play a chord, and they'd take their hands straight off the keyboard and say, oh, this thing's broken, because only one note occurred. And that was a huge hurdle for most artists to overcome. Some of them were able to deal with that and learned how to lift, because with the Moog, unlike the ARP, every time you hit a new note, unless you have lifted the previous note, it doesn't re-fire the envelope generators. It's a nice way of getting legato, and it's a sort of a way of getting some sort of touch sensitivity, but there was, when I say touch, I mean velocity sensitivity, as you would call it in MIDI. But in other words, however hard, how you hit the key would change how you hit the key would not change the sound, just like a harpsichord or an organ. So the only way is to do that. I had to come up with some ideas, and I created this joystick, which enabled me, one, to keep the instrument in tune, because the original Moogs were not in tune over more than 2.5 octaves. Very difficult to keep them in tune. The keyboard was an afterthought. but the ability to change the tonal quality as well enabled us to sort of simulate velocity sensitivity. So I used a airplane joystick, toy airplane thing, which I bought, and that helped. Some artists were able to handle that, but mostly they wanted to just play the notes on the keyboard, and I would be the one who would be correcting the pitch and everything, because I'm an acoustic bass player and have fine motor control with my left hand, so I can cheat, and also I can look at the keys. I can see. I'm used to watching piano player. I'm a jazz player, so I'm used to watching the left hand of the keyboard player, and I could see where they're going. And when they went into the range where it was out of tune, I could just tweak the joystick up a bit. They never knew that it was me doing that. So we got the reputation that we were actually the only synthesizer in New York City, or for that matter in the world, that had a synthesizer that could play in tune over 5 octaves. So it was a well-kept trade secret, shall we say. However, the absence of polyphony was quite a hurdle, because it meant that you had to have a tape machine in order to do multiple tracks in order to make chords. And most of the artists weren't into that, so we utilized it alongside other instruments. Stevie liked the clavinet a lot, and he liked to put the clavinet, when he first came, he used to put the clavinet through a Crybaby wah-wah pedal, and it was so damn noisy. It wasn't anything that I wanted to put on the record. So I had a module made by Roger Mayer, which was a phaser. In those days, phasing was like a whole new thing. And so we were able to process other instruments that were chorded through Tonto, and that sort of helped a great deal. But as time went by, and more instruments came out that were polyphonic, then it became a different ball game. But the trouble with the polyphonic instruments that came out at that time was that they were, all the notes were the same sound. If you just had say a string patch, every note sounded like the string, the same instrument. Whereas with Tonto, one of the things I wanted to do was to operate multiple synthesizers. So when you played 4 or 5 notes, each note would go to a different synthesizer. And that created technical problems, or actually a musical problem, which we called the assignment problem. In other words, if you were to play 4 notes and move one of them, how does the synthesizer, or how does the Tonto know which instrument or which synthesizer is going to actually be moved to that note? So a guy called Armand Passetta came into the picture, and he designed a digital interface in conjunction with the instruments, so that we could actually play 4 or 5 note chords and send them to different synthesizers. And I call that multi-timbral polyphony, because each note is a different timbre. And that was very unique. The person who picked that up and turned it into the first commercial instrument was Tom Oberheim with his 2 and 4 voice keyboards. But as time has gone by, we've now got soft synths, and Tim and Bear utilized the soft synths very much. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but yeah, it's not quite so easy to manipulate the sounds once you've got them. You can get the notes and everything, but manipulating the sound on the fly with a soft synth, I don't think it's that easy.
No, and like the crazy thing about it too is if a lot of producers do it, is that you have a sound that you like, and then actually instead of changing the actual sound, what we usually do is we just put it through filters and different effects. Like that's basically how we can color it. But but with Tonto, it's not like that. It's like you are the effect. You are the thing that changes it. So
let's have a little demonstration of that, if we can. We've brought one limb of Tonto, into the performance hall. And I think you have some sounds queued up.
Yeah. Let me just pull something up here.
While he's getting that set up, I just want to acknowledge the tremendous work that Tonto Week and this residency has been. It's been a collaboration between all departments at the National Music Center. So a big thank you to Jason Talkin, Eric Cinnamon, Matt Walkie, who's doing sound right now, and yeah, all departments who have worked to make this a success.
Okay, so this is kind of like basically how it worked and how it happened. Jason hooked up this thing. It's made by Expert Sleepers. It's called the Usamo, I believe. So what it does is that it converts a MIDI signal into a sound that could be recognizable to the box, and which goes into Tonto, which can spew out the notes. But the crazy thing about it is that it's not exact all the time. Like most times it is, but we just looked at it as like, this is the way Tonto wanted to play it, so we're just gonna like let it, we just roll with it. So this track is one that we're really excited about. I won't play a lot of it, I'm sorry, but basically what it is that it's a combination of a bunch of things. So I'll play the bass patch first. So this is what we wrote. It's like a nice little full bass sound. So we wrote that when we were in LA, and we were just kind of like, you know, having a great time. And then this one here is now we took that same exact MIDI and we ran it through the Usamo into Tonto, and this is kind of, it's not exact what it sounded like because the bass patch. You wanna, if there's something we can do to make it smell like a bass patch here. So this is basically what we did. We just kind of watched Malcolm work.
I gotta get this in tune.
There it is, right there. Yeah, it worked. So this is kind of the process we would use with it. And everything's all set up, so all I have to do really is just hit record. And then it would just loop right back into our interface, and then voila, we have a pure wave sound. But we actually ran it through, was it Randy Bachman's Neves or something like that? Like something really crazy. So we ran it through that and got it nice and round. It sounded amazing. And I actually have a sample of the loop here. So I'll play that. I'll play the actual loop that we have here. I'm gonna pick a different place because you know what? I will play it out top because it will explain the first note that Tonto plays when it first opens up the envelope isn't very strong. So it starts off kind of low, but then it gets into it. But, oh, my bad. So it sounds like a waking bear or something like that. But as the song goes on, it actually, it's not the same as the last time that we played it. But like it ramps up and it just keeps going. So it really feels like, you know, like it's someone's playing it. So that's what we did to get the Tonto sound. What also on this track, I just want to kind of spotlight here, is that we worked with, there's an Australian band, which is kind of like a counterpart to Tribe over there. They're called Oka. Their drummer, Julian, laid us some drums. Which is really dope because we told him we wanted like an island vibe, so we got that. And then I'm currently working with a producer named DJ Khalil out of LA, and he gifted me the opportunity to work with some samples that he has created. So he had these reggae packs, like these old reggae sounding samples. So he gave me one to use, and we cut it out. So we had like something like that, and then we had a power vocal, and I pitched it to the sample. So. And I guess all together it sounds like this.
Nice.
So this is kind of new territory for Tribe too, as well, to be able to kind of add all of these elements into it. But you know, at the very beginning of creating this record, we wanted it to be a collaborative project again, just like our previous album, but we wanted to step it up a notch. So not only do we have it in the form of last time features, this time we brought in like other players, musicians, other producers, and now Tonto is kind of like I guess a producer or a session player, you know, like, or however it is. But Tonto definitely is a featured artist on the album.
Amazing. We're almost out of time. Thank you so much for sharing some new music. It sounds incredible. You were talking about sharing knowledge and collaborating. I'm wondering, what have you learned from this experience of working with Tribe?
Well, I find them to be really refreshing, different. I was extremely interested in working with First Nation group because I think it's an amazing experience, and it turned out for me to be very revealing to see the way that they worked, because I don't work in that way. I've never worked using like a soft synth as a beginning, and I've learned that there's many ways to skin a cat. And you know, even at my advanced years, I learned a great deal from both Tim and Bear about the way that they approach their music and the absolute dedication they have. They're in every day. They're working all the time. And when we were working with Tonto, they didn't break for lunch, nothing. It was straight through, head, nose to the grindstone, shoulder to the wheel, best foot forward, and they were able to work in that position.
I know that we have a lot of folks here from AIMCon, and so welcome to Studio Bell. It's going to be a fantastic weekend, so thank you for checking this out. Just the last comment from you, any advice to the producers in the audience who are looking for some inspiration this week over Alberta Electronic Music Conference and over our Tonto Week celebrations?
It's hard to say it because, I feel like, most producers are constantly want to be better. They want that next thing. But one humbling experience here is that, I get in my head sometimes and I think I have a specific way of doing things until you run into Tonto, and then you're like, oh, I have to rethink everything now. But it's nice. It's nice to maybe throw some things into the mix that something that you would never have done before. Or Malcolm was teaching me about new scales, different scales, and what was the one? That was the one I was in fashion? Was it the 19 note or 21?
19 note, yeah.
The 19 note scale. That's gonna be my journey for the next couple of years, I think. I'm gonna just take in the knowledge that learn from Malcolm and do that, and also I guess find people, community, work with your community because you guys will all push each other. Community is super important. If I didn't have Bear pushing me all the time, it would be, I probably wouldn't be, supported. I guess I just feel supportive. I feel free in order to kind of explore our sound, and I guess that's it. Just find people that you can learn from. There's a lot here in the community, especially in Calgary. There's a lot of people here that is available to learn, even this place specifically. This is a great place to learn.
I think one of the most impressive things, or one of the things that blew me away the most about working with you, Malcolm, was that I've never met somebody before who had such an amazing understanding and huge knowledge of music from the mathematical and theoretical side, but also a deep understanding of music from the spiritual side. And the energy that's in all of us, and the energy that it takes to create music, and the energy that we put in and that we get from that. And to see somebody who has that balanced understanding of both those worlds really blew my mind.
Thank you. I think that the question was about what suggestions do we have for the producers here. I would say there are three things, it's basically 6 words that I would give you, which is something that I've sort of tried to boil down over the period of my entire career. And basically, first of all, it's take risks. Because when you take risks, even though you may fail, you learn from the failure. Don't be afraid to fail. It's just as good as succeeding, because negative knowledge is useful. So the first 2 words are take risks. The second 2 words are don't overthink. Come from the gut. Come from where music is, emotion. It's not up here, it's down here. You can have it up here when you're preparing things and so on. Composing and so on and so forth. But when you're actually playing, performing, actually getting people to do things, as a producer, your job is to get the best possible performance and the best possible response from the people that are working with you. And don't overthink it. Just come from go with your feelings, much more so than your head. And the last 2 words are most important of all. Be yourself. You all know what that means.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tribe. Thank you, Malcolm. Some inspiring words to finish off on. Tonto Week continues. Tomorrow we have an after-hours program that A Tribe Called Red are headlining. There are still limited tickets left, so do not miss out on that incredible experience. We're going to have the whole building activated, 2 stages, all kinds of fun activities. And if you want to get more in-depth with Malcolm, which I know you do, come Saturday at noon. We'll be doing an in-depth conversation and demonstration with Tonto in its entirety. But before you leave the building, go up to the 5th floor and take a moment with Tonto, take a selfie, and spread the word about Tonto Week. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic afternoon, everyone.